Are Manchester United finally about to fix the fullback issue because that side of the team's needed attention for years? And now we've got multiple reports of United scouting fullbacks. So let's get into all the latest news. So let's kick off with Dalot. Now, this was a report that came out from Graham Bailey back in December saying that Real Madrid are interested in a 2026 deal for Manchester United defender Dalot, with sources telling Team Talks that the Red Devil director of football, Jason Wilcox, is considering selling the Portugal international. We can confirm Dalot's long-term future is being discussed internally by Man United, as the club have been made aware of possible interest in the Portuguese international. So this is a report going back a couple of months suggesting that Diogo Dalot is of interest to Real Madrid, but that also United are discussing his future internally. Now, there's been a recent report saying the chances of Real Madrid raiding Manchester United for Dalot are well and truly alive, with Dani Carvajal reportedly not happy with his current situation. There's also question marks around Trent Alexander-Arnold and his situation at Real Madrid as well. I saw a report recently suggesting that maybe Man City were looking to bring Trent back to the Premier League, which means if Carvajal's not happy at Real Madrid, there could be a need for Real Madrid to go out and get a right back, and Dalot is a player of interest to them, as I mentioned in the previous report. It goes on in this one to say sources have told us that United Director of Football Wilcox and his staff are happy with Dalot, but they're also aware that the Portugal international's next contract would require a pay rise, and that's a bit of a spanner in the works and a really interesting talking point, because Diogo Dalot, his contract currently runs out in 2028. We do have a +1 option on his contract, but he's 26 going on 27, and he's kind of at that age where maybe he is looking for a new contract. And with when players get into the last 2 years to 18 months of their contracts, that's when you would start to look to do renewals if it's a player that you want to keep as well. So we are getting to that moment in time where actually we do need to have a conversation around Dalot and his future. Based on his performances at his time at United, does he justify a pay increase? I'm not entirely sure regarding that. I think that, personally, I wouldn't be desperate to sell him, but I'm also not building the next Man United with Dalot as a nailed-on right back. I do think we can upgrade in that area. If a big offer came in from Real Madrid, I would cash in personally and replace him properly. If it's a low ball bid, though, keeping someone like Dalot for squad depth, because he is well liked behind the scenes and offers a little bit off the pitch, professional, always available, can play in multiple positions. I wouldn't be against necessarily keeping Dalot, but then keeping Dalot comes with the question of, do you then have to give him a contract and a pay rise? And if you're giving a pay rise to someone that potentially at that moment could be a squad player, you can see why there's question marks or things starting to maybe creep in regarding Dalot and his future and his long-term future at the club. Now, interestingly, we have been linked with scouting a potential replacement. Borussia Dortmund's Julian Ryerson is a top target for Premier League scouts due to his impressive assist record. With a £35 million valuation, Dortmund holds leverage, but Premier League clubs like United and Newcastle are in pursuit. Man United are planning a comprehensive defensive overhaul. United see Ryerson as the perfect strategic target to solve their long-standing fullback rotation issues, particularly valued for his delivery and defensive discipline. Now, Ryerson's an interesting profile, very similar in a way to Dalot, where he can play multiple positions as well, so does offer a little bit of versatility. 28 years old, though, so he's above the age group that Ineos are looking for at 26 and, around the 26, 27 sort of age group. His contract is similar to Dalot's contract until 2028. 29 appearances this season, 13 assists. So you can see why, that would be, why this sort of profile of player would be generating a little bit of attention. And for £35 million, that's not exactly a bad shout. Problem is, though, it came from Ekrem Connor. Now, Ekrem Connor, if you've watched the show before, or you've subscribed or anything, you will be aware of Ekrem Connor. He has linked us with about a bazillion players, and none of them have come true. So it is definitely pinch of salt material, in my opinion. However, interesting profile. I'd want to see a lot more credibility, though, personally, before getting too giddy regarding Ryerson. But I'll keep an eye on it for you. If anything does come out, we'll obviously bring it to you. But he's not the only right back or potential right back that we've been linked with as well. So this report's coming out saying Manchester United are monitoring Pierre Kalulu, with 2 club representatives set to watch him for Juventus versus Inter at the San Siro this Saturday. Juventus don't want to sell and plan to renew until 2030 with a €3.5 million salary. So that came from Nico, Italian journalists suggesting that United are monitoring Kalulu and are set to send representatives to watch the Juventus Inter game this weekend, and he could be one of the players that we are scouting and paying attention to. Dimarco will be playing in that game as well, and he's a player that we were linked with the other day. So whether we're going to be looking at those, we're linked with Keenan Yildiz as well. So there are a few players on both teams that we have been linked with in the past and recently as well. Kalulu's an interesting profile as well. He's a little bit younger. He's 25, so good age. Does offer a little bit of versatility as well because he's very similar to Mazraoui in a way where he's playing on the right. So Juventus sometimes change their formation. They play a 3 at the back or a 4 at the back. When they play it with a 4 at the back, he is a right back in that shape. When they play a 3 at the back, though, he is someone that plays on the right side of the central defence. So he's a very similar in that regards where he can play, both positions to what Mazraoui can, where Mazraoui can play as a right centre back, as in a back 3 or at right back. Very interesting profile of player. Got a good return as well. French. So I actually think that would be an interesting profile to potentially bring in as well down that side. Now, in terms of left backs, this was really interesting. I brought you this news the other day, but Dean Jones is now saying that Man United and Chelsea are monitoring Tromso defender Said Kinteh, valued at £4 to £6 million. He can also play left back, and his clock speeds close to 37 kilometers an hour, comparable to Premier League speedster Mickey van der Ven. So this is the second time. Simon Jones, it was from the Daily Mail, also reported this, that this is a young player that we are interested in. £4 to £6 million, so not exactly bank breaking. An absolute speedster. The more I've looked into him, the more he actually looks like a beast as well. Tall, powerful, looks good on the ball as well. Yes, he's playing for Tromso, which isn't exactly Real Madrid level club, no disrespect, but for some like this sort of signing is what I thought we were going to be going for with Christopher Vivell and the scouting team and the data team, looking at these sort of unknown gems from other clubs that you've not really heard of, relatively cheap to bring in and develop and grow. And as it mentions in the report, is somebody that can play left centre back and left back as well, so would offer you that versatility. So if you are looking to bring in somebody that can compete or provide cover for Martinez if he's injured, not a bad shout. Or if you want somebody that can provide and compete with, Dorgu and Shaw for that left-hand side, they're not a bad shout as well, especially with those sort of speeds. Like Mickey van der Ven, absolute rapid pace, one of the fastest players in the Premier League. I think he's clocked the fastest speed there. And if this kid is on par with that, that would be a really interesting profile to bring in as well. So I think I think personally we do need to look at upgrades in the fullback areas. Shaw's not getting any younger. Dorgu can play there and is probably going to be the player to play there. But we need a rotation option for him because I don't think Diego Leon's going to be ready, even though he's very highly regarded behind the scenes. Harry Amas is young and out on loan and had a few injuries recently as well. So I don't know if they're quite ready to step up to compete in Premier League and Champions League. Hopefully we're in Champions League next season. Maybe if we don't get knocked out of the first rounds for each cup, you could play them in those sort of games to give them some first team minutes. So the left back for me definitely is an area we've needed to look at for years and have sort of neglected in a way outside of Patrick Dorgu. And then on the right hand side as well, Diogo Dalot. Is he the long-term future at right back? I would personally be playing Mazraoui ahead of Dalot, even though, I do think that since Carrick has come in, Dalot is justified staying in the team, but I personally prefer Mazraoui as the right back. Do we then need to look at, replacing one of those potentially and then bringing in a younger right back because we don't have anybody like a Leon? We've got Leon, Amas, Dorgu, all relatively young for the left side, but nobody really of that ilk for the right-hand side. And Ryerson doesn't fit that bill because he's older, but someone like Kalulu, 25 years old, not a bad shout down that end. Kinteh would be an interesting option to bring in that can provide a little bit of cover. So are United really going to be looking at strengthening those areas? It's going to be interesting because we know we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to the midfield this summer. That's been widely reported. We've my vocal cords are sick of talking about midfielders because we've been banging on about it for that many months. Fullback area. Give us your thoughts and feelings though on all of that in the comments. I'll be really interested to hear what you've got to say regarding, the Dalot situation. That'll be really interesting to hear here. So get involved in the comments. Let me know what you think regarding that. Now, Ben Jacobs did say though that last summer we were interested in fullbacks as well, which again to me just means that it is an area that they are aware of. Whether this was though because Amrim and the three at the back, the need for wing backs, whether it would be such a priority for this summer, we don't know. But he was saying Grimaldo, Marcus Llorente, and Daniel Munoz were names that we were, linked with for the fullback position. So it does feel like that could be an area that we need to pay attention to for the summer. But give us your shouts on that in the comments down below. Now, sticking with the defence, there's been multiple reports suggesting that Harry Maguire is due to sign a new deal and a new contract at United. Chris Wheeler did say this the other day in the Daily Mail, but Dean Jones is also saying that Manchester United sources are increasingly expectant that Harry Maguire will remain at Old Trafford beyond this season. United believe his experience and influence in the dressing room remain valuable assets, and they are eager to ensure his stay is extended off the back of that. And did say in the report, they're very impressed with his leadership qualities, which we knew anyway, but the fact he's come back, gone into the first team, his attitude, mentality, like I'm not against doing that. It's going to be on a reduced contract as well, so he's going to have to take a pay cut in order to do that, which doesn't necessarily, affect us in any way, shape or form. And in a summer where you're losing, the leadership skills of Casemiro, I don't necessarily think it's a bad shout to keep someone like Maguire around because he's been through it all at United, hasn't he? And he's come back from it, and I do think there's a bit of value in there. The other thing is as well is that he is homegrown, and we do have to worry about the homegrown quota as well for this summer. So not a bad. I'm not bothered either way with Maguire. Let him go for free or give him a new contract on a reduced wage. So now in the same report, though, Dean Jones was saying that sources have also confirmed that United are still planning to enter the market for another centre-back this summer, with recruitment staff actively assessing defensive reinforcements, including a number of young up-and-coming options. And that's maybe why we are starting to get links with, like Kinteh and players like that as well. But I don't have an issue with that personally. Now, let's move on to the midfield news. There's been a link with another name. Well, I say another name. We've been linked with Morten Hjulmand for a very long time. So Morten Hjulmand is expected to leave Sporting for a fee of around 50 million euros this summer. Man United is one of the teams that have been very interested in him and will be tempted to signing this summer for that price. Now, the reason why the price is important, he's got a 70 million pounds or 80 million euro release clause, but being available for 50 million euros is like 43.5 million pounds. Now I know some of you will say, well, Amrim's gone, Hjulmand was linked. We were linked with Hjulmand before Amrim came in, so this is a player that has been long linked with us. If we are going down the route of one expensive Premier League proven midfielder and then a cheaper alternative from outside of the Premier League, I wouldn't necessarily be against going for Hjulmand, but because I think we need three midfielders anyway, personally. So as your second or third midfielder, not a bad shout to bring in. Got good leadership qualities, good on the ball, and everything like that. I wouldn't necessarily be, jumping up and down if we brought him in as our only midfield profile this summer, personally. But interesting. We'll keep an eye on that one and see if there's any credibility or any more links with bringing in Morten Hjulmand. And then the other area we know we're looking to strengthen in the summer potentially is the forward position, specifically the left wing. And this report's come out saying that Manchester United, Newcastle, Tottenham and Aston Villa have joined Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City in pursuing Eli Junior Kroupi from AFC Bournemouth. That would be an interesting shout. 19 years old, can play in multiple positions. He's been playing mainly up front for Bournemouth. Can play as a 10 and can play as a left winger as well. Premier League proven, young, developmental, up and coming. Multiple teams looking at him. Bournemouth are a selling club as well, but I would worry about us competing with those sort of teams because, the more bids Bournemouth get, they're going to sell him for the highest price, aren't they? So we'll, we'll keep an eye on that one and see if that one takes off. But give us your suggestions or give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that is you all right up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.